gonna lie, when I was imagining the most popular Sonic characters to come after the 4 I've already done, I was thinking along the lines of Amy Rose, Metal Sonic, heck even Blaze the Cat. But Silver the Hedgehog? Color me surprised, I guess he had a larger fan base than I gave him credit for. Kudos. In any which case, today is Valentine's Day. So as my Valentine's Day gift to you guys, you get another Sonic character. And I don't know why, but I could have sworn there was something else Sonic related going on today as well. Oh. Silver the Hedgehog, the young lad hailing from an unfortunately forever doomed future who finds himself constantly coming back in time to rectify the mistakes of the past. Or to just hang out and play Olympic sports. You know, the most practical reason to time travel. Silver is a bit naive and somewhat headstrong, but he's a very powerful hedgehog, privileged with incredibly potent psychokinetic powers. So for today's moveset, he'll be joining the likes of Ness, Lucas, and even Mewtwo among Smash's mightiest psychics. Silver would be a fairly lightweight character with an above average amount of movement speed, standard for most Sonic characters. I know he was super slow in his debut game, but the Rivals titles show that he is in fact pretty fast, especially when he utilizes his powers. He'd have 2 jumps, and he would be able to wall jump. So Silver's an interesting case, because unlike the previous 4 Sonic characters that I covered, he's had far fewer game appearances to work with. To add to that, he's never appeared in a fighting game before. So as such, the majority of his moveset will be pretty innovated, using his psychokinesis to give him the edge in battle. So starting with his jab, he can have a 3-hit jab that starts with him swinging one arm diagonally forward that emits some psychic energy as he does. The second hit then has him thrust his other arm straight forwards horizontally for a palm thrust that also emits a bit of energy. And the jab will end with Silver unleashing a small psycho explosion from the palm he just thrusted forwards to launch foes away. His dash attack can have Silver use an offensive version of the teleport dash from Sonic 06. I say an offensive version since this isn't actually an attack in that game, just a means of slightly moving forwards a little faster in the air, for all that it's worth. This will have Silver quickly dash forward surrounded in psychic energy. It starts nearly instantaneously, and any foe in his way will be popped into the air as Silver dashes through them, but it does have a bit of end lag. However, if an opponent shields the attack, not only will Silver not go through the foe, but there will actually be a bit more end lag than usual, leaving Silver even more susceptible to punishment than normal. The side tilt can have Silver do his Psychic Chop attack that he has in Sonic 06, a move where Silver swings his arm horizontally forwards while emitting a pretty far-reaching amount of psychic energy for some disjointed damage. The up tilt can have Silver waving his hand overhead from front to back, while again, emitting psychic energy to give the move a bit more disjoint. And the down tilt can be a simple low to the ground horizontal sweep kick, one that can pop foes into the air. Now for the smash attacks, these can make reference to one of Silver's most defining forms of attacks in Sonic 06, being able to use the environment as a weapon. The side smash can have him take a metal crate and throw it forwards as a large projectile. Where does he get the crate? Well, I'd like to imagine that he teleported it to himself. We see that Silver does have the ability to teleport his own body using psychokinesis, so there's no reason to assume that he can't do the same with other objects as well. So moving on to the up smash, he could bring in a construction girder and spin it above his head. It would spin multiple times, but it would only be able to hit foes once as it launches them on contact. And it wouldn't be that great in terms of verticality, but it hits pretty well horizontally. And for the down smash, Silver would bring in 2 wooden crates, which he'd then slam down on both sides of himself at the same time. While they weren't crates, this references one of the attacks that Silver uses during his boss fight in Sonic Generations. For the neutral aerial, Silver could emit a short-range circle of psychic waves all around his body. This would be a pretty quick attack, being able to launch foes near immediately, but it would have some end lag. The forward air could have him create a static shock of energy from the palms of his hands forwards. It could hit foes multiple times before launching them with the final hit, much like Ness's forward air. The back air can have him thrust the palm of his hand backwards to cause a psycho explosion behind himself. It'd come out quick and hit fairly hard, standard for back airs. The up air can have Silver use his powers to make his body do a backflip, all the while kicking upwards from front to back with a single foot. And the down air can simply have him do a single kick downwards, swinging his foot from back to front, and it would be capable of spiking in its sweet spots. Now for some of the deadliest moves in the arsenal of any Smash character with psychokinetic powers, the throws. Silver would have a slightly disjointed grab that would have him catch his foes in a psychokinesis, and he'd pummel by shocking his foe, also fairly common among these kind of characters. His forward throw would mimic a move from his boss fight in Sonic 06, where he crunches up, then extends his body to send the foe forwards. And just to make it appropriate, sometimes he would yell, "Take this!" whenever he uses it. This would be a powerful throw, but don't worry, it's not quite strong enough to send you into orbit. The throw that could send you to the moon, however, would be his back throw. By far his most terrifying move that would be on par with the likes of Ness. He'd spin the foe around his body before sending them backwards towards oblivion. The second most dangerous throw would be his up throw, which would simply have him send the foe high into the air with a simple wave of his hand. And the down throw would have Silver lift the foe high into the air with his powers, then slam them straight into the ground, bouncing them into the air. For Silver's neutral special, it would have Silver use his psychokinesis in almost the same way that he does in Sonic 06. Holding down the special button would put Silver into a state where his body begins to glow. While in this state, he can't use any of his other attacks, grab, shield, or sidestep, but being able to do those again is as simple as letting go of the special button to take him out of the state. He's more limited, sure, but the biggest feature that being in this state grants him is that he'd be able to grab any item or projectile close to him with his powers, regardless of whether it was thrown at him or just sitting on the ground. He's only able to hold 3 things at a time, and no more than that. While holding objects with his powers, there's a number of things that he can do. You could just let go of the special button, which will have Silver just drop everything, unless it's a projectile from an attack. Those will just disappear. This could be good to do if you see something coming your way and already have a full plate, or you can drop it all on a foe if you're above them for a makeshift Z drop. If you tap the attack button while you have objects, Silver will then throw them as his own projectiles. This does act as a makeshift type of reflect, as anything he throws will deal 1.5 times the amount of damage that the object would have done beforehand. Tapping allows you to throw each item one at a time, with a small amount of cooldown between each throw. But if you hold down the attack button for a bit instead, this will have Silver charge up, and from there he'll use the hold smash technique, which has him throw every item at the same time. Items thrown like this will all deal twice the amount of their base damage, and that's just individually, so this could deal a lot of damage if you grab the right stuff. Aside from all that, the objects are all solid while hovering around Silver, so if a foe runs into or attacks one while they float around him, they'll just clang with the object, making it disappear. And if Silver were to ever get hurt while in the state, he'll be forced out of it and will drop everything that he was holding. Now for Silver's side special, this could be his own simple projectile attack in the form of the Psycho Knife from Generations. It's a basic move that has Silver shoot a crescent-shaped cutting projectile horizontally forwards. It travels about the distance of Final Destination, and it deals a decent amount of damage. The best thing to compare it to really is Cloud's Blade Beam neutral special, except its power wouldn't be affected by whether it was used on the ground or in the air. Now for Silver's up special, I mentioned earlier that Silver can teleport, right? Well, I'm not doing that! I've given too many of these characters teleports just because I've had no other options, but Silver does have another, much cooler option, so I'm gonna use that! This will reference Silver's ability to use his powers to lift his own body into the air for flight. In 06, Silver was able to keep himself in the air and move around for a limited amount of time, so that's what I'll be using for Silver's up special. Pressing the command will have Silver start hovering in place, and pressing any direction on the control stick will have him fly into that corresponding direction at an average speed. And don't think you can just flap your wings to let Silver go even farther, because after 3 seconds, Silver's power runs out and he's forced into freefall. You can cancel it sooner by pressing the attack button to have Silver use one of his aerials, but this will also put him into freefall. And finally, for the down special, this could have Silver use the Psycho Shock technique from Sonic 06. In that game, it was only usable in the air, but for this moveset, it can be used on the ground as well. Silver will press his hand to the ground to emit a semi-short range shockwave all around himself. There's a small amount of start frames before the shockwave comes out, and when it does, it's near instantaneous. Anyone within the radius of the wave will be shocked for a bit, unable to move. And just like how it usually is to be shocked in Smash, the higher their damage, the longer they'll be shocked for. This shockwave can also nullify any projectile, and if it's used in the air, it works just like it does in 06, where Silver will fall straight down and emit the shockwave as soon as he hits the ground. For Silver's final smash, he'd transform into Super Silver and perform his most devastating technique, the Meteor Smash. How appropriately named. As he transforms, he'd emit a large psycho shock all around himself, trapping any foe too close. He'd then collect a large amount of objects and garbage from all over to create a giant ball above himself. From there, he'd throw the ball straight down to deal major damage and knockback to any foe hit by it. Once the ball hits the stage, it explodes into a massive amount of debris, which can deal some minor collateral damage to any foe too close if they manage to avoid being trapped, but were still close enough to be hit by the meteor of garbage exploding. After which, Silver just returns to normal to resume the fight. The Meteor Smash was introduced in Sonic Generations as Silver's last-ditch effort attack against Sonic. And it certainly was one heck of an effort, because if it hit Sonic, it was lights out for the Blue Blur. Also yes, Silver was able to do this without actually needing to go Super, but I added the Super form mostly to give him an excuse to be able to perform the much stronger Psycho Shock, and because if I didn't incorporate it, I'd get a ton of comments of people telling me that I forgot it when I really didn't. So this one's for you, comment section! Also as a little bonus, I'd like to imagine that the Meteor Ball itself could be comprised of various things depending on what stage you're fighting on. That'd be a neat attention to detail. At first I was kind of struggling as to what colors I should give to Silver, but then I had a pretty nifty idea to make his alts based on the various colors of elements from the periodic table. A little geeky, yeah, but real Silver is a part of that. Also I'm talking about Sonic characters, so that's a bridge that's long been crossed. But as such, for his first alt, it could have Silver be in gold colors. Here we have copper colors. Then the various colors of bismuth. Next is an iodine alt. Then a cobalt alt, then a boron alt, and finally a carbon alt. For his stage intro, he'll simply fly to the stage using his powers. Pretty basic. For taunts, his first can have him adjusting his gloves while saying his ever-iconic line, "It's no use!" Him adjusting his gloves comes from various titles as something Silver does, probably just as a habit that he has. And I don't think I need to remind you guys of where "it's no use" comes from. You've probably already heard it plenty of times. That said, if this were a real moveset, you would all be legally obligated to use this taunt immediately before grabbing the foe and using the forward throw. I don't make the rules, that's just how it be. For the second taunt, it'll have Silver curl up to spin in the air before ending with an open body pose that emits some psychic energy. And during this, he'll say, "I will change the future!" The taunt comes from the Olympic Games series, and the line is just kind of a generic thing that Silver says on occasion. And for the final taunt, it'll have Silver spin, then do a pose with his arm while saying, "I won't lose!" This also comes from the Olympic Games. And finally, for victory animations, his first will have him do a breakdance flip that ends with a floating pose and him yelling, "Great!" His victory animation from Sonic 06. The second could have him fly in a bunch of flips and circles before landing with a pose and saying, "I am not to be trifled with." This comes from Olympic Games. And the final can have Silver slowly float down to the ground, then pose while saying, "No one can stop me." This makes reference to the first time Sonic ever confronts Silver. But don't worry, those weird jets and sound effects won't be there. Seriously, what was up with that? And that does it for what if Silver the Hedgehog was in Smash. Silver is such a polarizing character. He hasn't had many chances to shine in the games, and when he does, they weren't exactly great. It's a shame. I'm sure this character has a lot of potential, but unfortunately not much has really been done with him. But in a weird way, that could explain why he's a fan favorite. Fans know that he could be a great character, he just needs to be given the right attention to do so is all. Oh well. I just hope that I was able to give Silver that kind of attention for this moveset, and that you guys were able to enjoy it. Speaking of which, if you did enjoy it, liked what you saw, and would like to see even more characters be given possible Smash movesets, be sure to subscribe. And if you'd like to support the show and help me be able to make more content for you guys while you also get some perks for doing so, you can click the join button either below the video or on my main page to become a sponsor for my channel. I'd really appreciate anything that can be contributed. And of course, if you have a character that you'd like to see be given a possible Smash moveset, leave a comment down below or contact me on Twitter at BrawlFan1 on Twit. I hope y'all enjoyed, thank you so much for watching, and here's to hoping that the Sonic movie does well and doesn't lead to a whole bunch of Valentine's Day breakups.